On May 2, 2011, Osama bin Laden was shot and killed by a SEAL team at his hideout in Abbottabad, Pakistan. The raid offered a disturbing insight into the brutality that such operations require, and the squalor and paranoia that characterized bin Laden's final years. When details emerged confirming the killing of the alqaeda leader Osama bin Laden, one of the biggest shocks was that he was discovered living in another country from that which most Americans, even experts in the media, assumed he would be hiding. As the war on terror gained pace in the months following the terror attacks on September 11, 2001, the US military turned its attention to Afghanistan, the country in the Middle East where al-Qaeda was based. It was in Afghanistan that the terror group had trained many of its members, and where its leader was believed to be hiding. The US moved to neutralize al-Qaeda through various military operations, including the war in Afghanistan. In the years that followed, reports emerged claiming that various senior figures in al-Qaeda had been killed in combat or drone strikes, while occasionally it was also rumored that US forces had finally ascertained the whereabouts of Osama bin Laden himself. Each time, however, it was reported he escaped his pursuer's grasp. It was deeply disturbing for many Americans when the truth of bin Laden's hiding place emerged, along with the information that despite all of the US military's best efforts, he had somehow evaded capture in Afghanistan and been smuggled into neighboring Pakistan. Bin Laden's compound was custom built by his allies, who bought several plots of land in peaceful Abbottabad and then went on to shock the locals by constructing a fortified residence with an 18-foot perimeter wall, defended by barbed wire. The residential portion of the building was almost windowless.
The United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden, the leader of al-Qaeda.
The raid took place just before 1 a.m. SEAL Team 6 had been training for days before the assault, practicing their entrance on a replica of the compound and working with information on Osama bin Laden's living situation. The team assigned to the mission, known by the codename Operation Neptune Spear, consisted of around 24 Navy SEALs, transported in a couple of stealth Black Hawk helicopters from their base in Afghanistan. Over the course of the next 40 minutes, the team of SEALs took their positions and entered the compound, instigating a bloody gunfight with bin Laden's family members and security. Few of the gruesome details of the killing were made public at the time of the announcement of Osama bin Laden's death. However, as time passed, the smoke cleared on what was obviously a bloody and brutal skirmish that took place at close range and at a high tempo, which resulted in the deaths of bin Laden himself, his son, 2 other men, and a woman who had been caught in the crossfire. The SEALs involved in the raid had signed non-disclosure agreements to prevent information about the secret operation, which took place on foreign soil, from entering the public domain. But in 2013, a SEAL referred to only as the shooter gave an interview to Esquire, describing how he and 5 colleagues entered the compound and ascended to the 3rd floor, where they found bin Laden. While the point man took aim at the al-Qaeda leader and missed, shooter claims he himself took 2 shots, which hit bin Laden in the forehead, sending him to the ground, after which he was shot again. The shooter, who later revealed himself to be a renowned veteran of Iraq and Afghanistan named Rob O'Neill, also shared a disturbing recollection that at the moment he was shot, bin Laden was standing behind one of his wives, his hands on her shoulders, pushing her towards the SEALs as though she was a human shield. O'Neill's testimony marries with early rumors of how the shooting played out, though official channels have denied that a human shield was used. Though Osama bin Laden lived in seclusion from the outside world during the final years of his life, he wasn't exactly lonely in his Abbottabad compound. The al-Qaeda leader lived in the secretive property with many of his extended family, including 3 of his 5 wives. The population of the compound at the time of the raid was around 24, and bin Laden's aides were reportedly becoming frustrated by the wanted killer's growing household, so much that they negotiated with him not to bring any more wives into the home, according to history.
We have this notion that he was interested in preserving his legacy.
It also emerged that bin Laden had fathered 4 children during the decade he was on the run from the United States. According to The Guardian, a total of 9 of bin Laden's children, the youngest of whom was just a toddler, as well as 4 grandchildren, were living with him in the confined conditions at the compound, though Reuters reports that 16 children lived at the property in total. Testimony from bin Laden's captured relatives later confirmed that those close to him, including his 12-year-old daughter, witnessed the killing. Despite one of the stealth Black Hawk helicopters crashing upon descending on bin Laden's compound, no SEALs were injured in either the landing or the raid as they entered the building in search of their target. Once the operation had achieved its aim and Osama bin Laden was dead, his identity was confirmed by one of his wives and through facial recognition. The compound and bin Laden in particular seemed to have been caught unaware by the arrival of the SEALs. Despite the imminent danger, the al-Qaeda leader was unarmed at the time of the raid and was unable to defend himself when confronted by 2 armed men who entered his 3rd-floor room in the early hours of the morning on May 2, 2011. However, it seemed that bin Laden had taken some meager precautions in case he had to go on the run again. When operatives checked over his body, they found 2 telephone numbers sewn inside his clothing, presumably emergency contacts, as well as the equivalent of hundreds of dollars in cash. Politico reported in the wake of the raid that the al-Qaeda mastermind may have trusted his information network to be able to forewarn him of American presence at the compound, but it appears in the end that he was blindsided by the operation. Within 24 hours, his remains were buried in accordance with Islamic tradition.
There was a Muslim seaman who was there, and they wrapped him and said the prayers according to what is part of the Islamic tradition.